So today I want to explain another distinctive difference of bioenergetics and acmeology approach, and it is the focus on practical results. Of course, everybody says that. So I'm going to use a little bit unorthodox way of explaining this. Of course, pretty much everything we do is a little bit unorthodox, and this is why it's considered an alternative approach. But really, I'm going to use an example and a parallel from a religion and spirituality. It's just a good one, so let's use it. So in a religion and spirituality, there is this concept of living faith and dead faith. And a person in living faith will have an experience, a spiritual experience. Well, they will experience something, and then they will go to the books and see how to interpret it and take it alongside of the knowledge associated with that. And on the flip side, a person who is considered in dead faith, they would go to the books because they have an interest. They would study the books, the spirituality books, whichever they're going with, intellectually, and then try to find parallels in their life and then try to mold their experiences to fit. So the difference here being what comes first, experience or head knowledge. And so when it comes to the questions of psychology and approaches, that's what mainstream does. They start with the knowledge. Okay, this is how brain chemistry works. This is how our neurons are connected. This is how it's supposed to work. We have a theory. Now let's have a clinical study and see what happens. Oh, 80% of people, 75, whatever, their passing grade is determined to be. Okay, it worked. Therefore, we can approve this as a method, and so now this becomes an approved approach, right? So they start with a premise, an intellectual concept, so scientific data, then they take it alongside practical application, and if it passes a specific threshold, I'm not exactly sure how they come up with whether it needs to be 75% or 60% or whatever their passing threshold is, then it gets to be approved. This is not how bioenergetics and acmeology approaches those things. Using our parallel, we don't start with the head knowledge, we start with practical experience. What works? How is it in reality? What results people actually experience. So in bioenergetics approach, it always starts with a case study. Someone has a problem, they come, they seek for a solution, we find a solution, then we go to the research. Well, it's kind of a continuum, as you can see here. We find a solution because we have the research. Then we have to base it on there. We test it, we see if it works for this person, it gets applied to other people, and so on and so forth. And so the continuum goes on. So it always starts with what works. Let me give you an example of anger management. In mainstream, it's one of the most commonly known psychological methods, approaches, whatever you call it. Everybody knows anger management. There is a movie about it even. So they have the research, they have the approved studies, so people go to anger management classes. Is there any data, any statistics on how many graduates of anger management classes actually experience a difference in their life? Not that I'm aware of. I am not aware of any statistics that would say, hey, so many people who went through the class were successful, so many failed. It's just kind of out there. It's an approved method that's supposed to work, but does it really? We don't know. In fact, I think we do know because having the research and the studies that we have in our approaches, I can basically prove to you that it's not physically possible for the anger management approach used in mainstream to work for the single reason that they address issue management versus core change. I have another video on that I'm going to leave you the link for under this video if you want to look in deeper. But basically, issue management deals with issues that are already there once the underlying problem is already present. Once you're angry, how do you manage it, right? Core change addresses not coming to that point in the first place, as in not getting angry. Um, so I would submit to you that people who are successful in mainstream anger management classes are successful for other reasons and not because the method works. They succeed because they pull in other resources from elsewhere in spite of the approach, not because of it. So, how would we approach anger management in bioenergetics and acmeology? Again, we are not going to look at how you react to anger and how you manage the emotion that is already there. We're going to look at is there a way for you to not get angry? Case study, right? There are some people who get angry very easily, get triggered by what most of us would consider minute things. For example, somebody calling you and interrupting your dinner. A lot of people is like, oh, hey, what's going on? Some people get angry about it. What makes this difference? Research, right? So we go from what is, from the reality of things, and then we do our research of what is going on. And briefly, now that we're using this example, the research shows that anger is actually a form of pain. There is a wound down there underneath, and it's like a physical wound. If my hand here is not wounded, I can stab myself all I want, but if I had a sore here, just even a little touch would send me through the roof, right? So that's what happens emotionally. If there's a wound under there, then even a little stimulus would send you through the roof. And that's what happens. That's why some people are more reactive than others. Um, okay, now that we know that, let's test it, right? The next next step in the cycle. Let's test it and see if we can heal that wound, would there be a difference? Well, lo and behold, we find that there is. And now, after people have dealt with underlying wound, they kind of change and become almost like a different personality in a sense that they're not as reactive. And where they would have gotten easily triggered and experienced anger, now they can be like the rest of us, like, ho, oh well, not a big deal. And look back and say, yeah, you know what, I used to react to that. So, this is indeed possible, and this is what our studies are all about. So now we have another case study of somebody who has overcome those difficulties And we can take it from there. We can do more research. We can see, hey, can we apply to other people? What difference are they going to have? What similarities are they going to have? Can we apply this on a larger scale? Can we say with clean conscience that this is not a coincidence, this indeed works and will work, and promise you with any degree of reasonable probability that if you use this method you're going to overcome anger. And after we research and test, we arrive to the premise, to the conclusion where we can say, yes, it will work for you. You can use this method and it's going to get you results. So, results. That's what acmeology and bioenergetic is all about. And this is why when you guys come into the programs, we use this strange term request. What is your request? And it's a term that borrowed from European terminology, because this is where this science originated. This is where it's coming from into the United States now. In US, we use terms as goal, objective, expectation, and the difference is that goal, may or may not be met. It's up to you to meet it. I'm not going to meet it for you. Expectation may be good or bad. I expect it's going to rain, and it is, but it doesn't really help my situation, right? A request is something that, when you have this magic lamp where a genie comes out and grants your wish, that's what you make a request for. This is what I want to happen. And I wouldn't be coming to you if I could make it happen on my own, in a sense, so I'm going to need help. That's not to discredit that the personal effort obviously needs to be put in any psychological change that you expect. It's a team effort, so to say, between the person who is helping you and you, because that's where the change occurs, is in you. You can't isolate yourself from that. But in a sense, there is an admission that, hey, I need help with that. I cannot make this change happen. So this is what my request to you is. Can you make this happen? And as I started this conversation, the distinctive difference of the approach of bioenergetic and acmeology is the focus on practical results. So, our answer to that request is, in most cases, yes. Or like I said, you have to participate, you have to do things, so nothing is ever 100%. I mean, if there was a magic wand that I could wave and make 100% of requests happen, these programs would be worth millions of dollars, right? There is, in the reality of this world, there is always a degree of, how much you're going to participate, how much the circumstances of your life actually match what you're presenting to us and what we're working with, or did you omit something when you presented your request to us, how realistic your request is. I mean, if I want to quadruple my income and have a Learjet by Monday, it's probably not a reasonable request, right? So, what I can tell you is that in bioenergetics, we do have studies, we do have a research, we do have case studies that verify the same, that a large portion of these requests does get granted. And this is why we are probably one of the few programs on the market that can in fact focus on the results and promise you results. We're not going to say, oh, try this method and see what happens. We actually focus on the results. Let's make it happen for you. This is our goal. So this is in a nutshell what I wanted to share in this video, and this is what I want to impress on you guys, is that we want you to come in with requests, and we are going to do our best to grant those requests. And the statistics of when that happens is actually pretty amazing. So I would want to encourage you to give this new method and approach a try, and I think it's going to bring an amazing change in your lives. Thank you for listening. I'm Helena with Triumph Over Green.